I mean, Adam, you read this. This is obviously a Gen Zer, a celebrity. Come on, I mean, may they never know peace? What do you make of it, Adam?
I think that it's funny you said you were expecting a far-left meltdown, and you quoted some 22-year-old actress from Hollywood, but you refused to admit, or you refused to acknowledge that the former president, the president-elect, refused to concede the last election. He hasn't conceded to this day. After that election, he made up lies about widespread election fraud, and people stormed the Capitol. So the idea that the far left is melting down because some 22-year-old actress said some cringy, corny thing on Instagram is totally absurd. You're ignoring Donald Trump's insane apocalyptic rhetoric, but I do want to respond to what Evan said. Evan said something to the effect of Donald Trump ran on actual economic policies. Yeah, all of his policies regarding the economy, beyond just the rhetoric about no tax on tips, his main economic proposal is a 20% blanket tariff on all imports in the United States. If you think prices went up over the past 4 years, wait until that happens.
All right, this is going to be a fun video. I did a live debate on NewsNation last night with another Gen Z commentator who voted for Trump, and the panel pretty quickly went off the rails. I should probably stop debating the news anchors during these things. I did the same thing a few weeks back during my Newsmax interview, but number one, I can't help it. And number two, you'll see why I have to push back against both the anchor and Evan, the woman I'm debating. So without further ado, let's break this down. Make sure you drop a like, make sure you subscribe. I think right now it is especially important to have young pro-democracy voices on television arguing for our side, so I will not give up. I will be relentless if you guys stick with me. Drop a blue heart for that, and let's jump in.
You know, has it set in, Adam, that Trump won among you all, and have you started to really process what may have gone wrong, especially when it comes to Gen Zers?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it set in, and I think everybody has their favorite explanation as to why Trump won, but I think it's really simple. Kamala Harris lost for the same reason that Trump lost back in 2020, and that's people voting against the status quo. People aren't happy with prices, people aren't happy with the incumbent administration, and you can see incumbents across the globe losing. So I honestly don't think this was some massive realignment of Gen Z that we can't get them back to the left. I think it's just the economy. Across the globe, people are not happy.
Yeah, I still stick by what I said there. Everybody does have their favorite explanation. I've seen so many articles written about trans people, written about Kamala's campaign should have done this on this specific day, and Tim Walz should have had this message. It's so easy to say this stuff post-hoc, but I think the broader point is, incumbents across the globe are getting voted out, not because of anything they did, just due to the shockwave of COVID and COVID spending, and most analysts seem to agree with that. It's the simplest explanation is usually the best. Now let's see what she says, and just so you guys know, the person I'm debating, Evan, went famous for raising $50 million for Democrats, then switching to a Republican a few years later. The Democratic Party turned its back on me and my family long before I turned my back on it, wrote Evan Barker. She was 17 when she started working in Democratic politics, and 9 years later, she is a firm Trump supporter. That's who I'm debating. Let's see how it plays out.
Evan, you're one of the people who left the Democrats and voted for Trump. What pushed you over?
Donald Trump was out there every single day talking directly to the voters, giving real policy proposals like no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, things that would infuse a real change directly into their lives right now. And so I think he ran on a campaign of economic populism, and she did not. And that's ultimately the main reason why the Democrats did not win this election. I think another thing that Adam didn't mention is that among Gen Z especially, all of these proxy wars that the Biden administration has promoted throughout the world are also deeply, deeply unpopular, you know? And so I think that especially when looking at Gen Z, they're pretty anti-war, you know, they're more in tune to these things than maybe previous generations were.
Okay, so there's a lot of BS right there. She implies that Kamala Harris doesn't have any policies, and I push back against that. She also lists Donald Trump's policies that are just strictly rhetoric. Donald Trump's economic policy relates to tariffs, mainly. The no tax on tips thing was something he came up with 10 minutes before a rally in Nevada because he knew it would play well to workers in Las Vegas. He has no intention of turning that into policy, and it's pure rhetoric. When it comes to the proxy war thing, I actually debunked that in a second here, and this is where I start to kind of but I start to go after both the anchor and Evan at the same time, because the question that the anchor asks me right here is almost offensive. It's almost an offensive question. He asked me about the left melting down after the election, when it's like, dog, were you not there for 2020 at all? And maybe I misplaced my anger towards this guy, but just take a look.
You know, I think a lot of people were waiting for like an almost far left meltdown over the last week, and a lot of people have been quiet, but there have been some very strange outbursts. The most recent I want to read you, it's from Rachel Zegler, who is Disney's newest Snow White. She was in the Hunger Games. Everybody knows her. She posted really an election rant on Instagram. Look at that. She said, this was on November 6th. I find myself speechless in the midst of this. There is a deep sickness in this country that is shown in the sheer amount of people who showed up for this man who threatens our democracy. Get the F off Elon's app, by the way. The F are you doing? May Trump supporters and Trump voters and Trump himself never know peace. I mean, Adam, you read this. This is obviously a Gen Zer, a celebrity. Come on, I mean, may they never know peace? What do you make of it, Adam?
I think that it's funny you said you were expecting a far left meltdown and you quoted some 22-year-old actress from Hollywood, but you refused to admit, or you refused to acknowledge, that the former president, the president-elect, refused to concede the last election. He hasn't conceded it to this day. After that election, he made up lies about widespread election fraud, and people stormed the Capitol. So the idea that the far left is melting down because some 22-year-old actress said some cringy, corny thing on Instagram is totally absurd. You're ignoring Donald Trump's insane apocalyptic rhetoric, but I do want to respond to what Evan said. Evan said something to the effect of Donald Trump ran on actual economic policies. Yeah, all of his policies regarding the economy, beyond just the rhetoric about no tax on tips, his main economic proposal is a 20% blanket tariff on all imports in the United States. If you think prices went up over the past 4 years, wait until that happens. You also said Gen Z voted due to all the wars across the globe, the proxy wars. I mean, foreign policy was on the last concern of Gen Zers, and most Gen Zers are probably pro-Ukraine. That's not a proxy war. That's us defending their sovereignty.
Okay, so I obviously covered a lot of ground there, but that's what you have to do on live television. You have to speak in sound bites if you want to effectively rebut everything your opponent said, and I got to everything that I wanted to there, but I do want to clarify, when I say that foreign policy is the last concern of Gen Z, I don't mean that we don't care about it. I care a lot about Ukraine. I just mean when you poll any American, Americans care much more about the economy and about housing and healthcare and the taxes that they have to pay every single year before they care about Russia and Ukraine or Israel and Palestine. And this is just a fact. It's very normal for Americans to care more about domestic things. So that was my point there. Gen Z was voting based on the economy. Gen Z wasn't voting based on Ukraine. Well, I was, because I'm pro-Ukraine, but most Gen Zers were not. So here, you start to see the news anchor get a little bit flustered. And I want you guys to let me know in the comment section, did I go a little bit too hard at the news anchor there, trying to push back, or was I justified because the news anchor tried to frame his question as if the left was about to go through a meltdown? Like, dude, you're gonna say the left is about to go through a meltdown when the right stormed the Capitol because of the rhetoric of the leader of the party. How are you gonna compare that to Rachel Zegler, the Snow White actress? The Snow White actress has the same power as Donald Trump? Give me a break. So let me know, do you think I went too hard on him? Because he starts to defend himself. He immediately starts to say, by the way, I would have said that for both sides. Just take a listen.
Yeah, and let me just be clear, Adam. I mean, I would have expected a far right meltdown, too, if Harris won. So it wasn't like I was just targeting the left. But I did expect more of, my super liberal friends to, I mean, they've been a little bit more quiet than I expected. That's just the point I was trying to make. Evan, there's something else interesting happening on TikTok, which I've noticed popping up. There's this thing called the 4B movement. I don't know if you've heard of it, Evan. It's this movement for women. No sex, no dating, no marriage, no children, essentially just hating men blaming the man. Apparently, it started back in South Korea several years ago, and now it's popping up here since the election.
This is such a dumb question. I'm sorry. And this is nothing against the news anchor, Brian. He probably doesn't have control over the questions, to be honest. But why aren't we talking about Trump's mass deportations, or his cabinet picks like Matt Gaetz, or his tariff policy? Why are we talking about some TikTok movement that doesn't even exist in real life? I'll bite the bullet right here. The 4B movement is dumb, and it doesn't exist in real life. Conservatives think that women on the left en masse are boycotting dating, boycotting sex and marriage, and just like not even looking at men in public after Trump. This is not happening. This is a completely made up thing online, and if it was happening, I would say it's probably dumb to boycott talking to men in person. Just organize. But that's what she says here, and let's see how this plays out.
What do you make of that, Evan? Have you seen it?
I've heard a little bit about this. I'm obviously not one of those women. I want to continue enjoying my life and having a good time. But, I've heard about this. I'm not sure how effective it'll be. I think a more effective strategy would probably just be for women to organize in the states that still currently have abortion bans.
I'm not going to lie, she's sort of right here. I mean, boycotting, looking, and talking to men is not going to be as effective as organizing.
And I do want to say one more thing, Adam. If those tariffs are really going to raise prices, why has Biden kept them? Okay. And also, the reason why Donald Trump overwhelmingly won the working class vote this election, and I mean overwhelmingly won it. If you look at 2008, Barack Obama won the working class vote by 66%. This election, Kamala Harris only did so by 48%. It's because those tariffs are going to keep American jobs in America. And that's why they're popular, and that's why he overwhelmingly won.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Adam. Yeah, you respond to her.
I was going to say, you're referring to very specific tariffs that Donald Trump enacted in his first term that Biden kept. Trump's new plan is 20% blanket tariffs. It's way different than what happened last time, and prices would increase. But yeah, you can continue.
Yeah, and we'll see if, that was the plan. We'll see if he ends up actually doing that. I'm curious, though, Adam, who do you think is the rising star in the Democratic Party now? I mean, is there a couple of people that you're eyeing?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because I do think there is somewhat of a vacuum of leadership. I mean, every time a party takes a loss, of course, they pivot. They think about what went wrong, unless you're Republicans in 2020. You just run the same guy again. But yeah, I think right now, as far as national candidates next election, we don't know. Remember, in 2004, nobody expected an Obama landslide in 2008. So, Gavin Newsom is articulate. I don't think he would be a good candidate on the national stage. AOC's been posting a lot on Instagram, but she's not ready to run. So there is some leaders that are emerging, but I don't think we're ready to talk about 2028 yet. But yeah, definitely some leaders emerging.
I do like Gavin Newsom, but I'm going to be 100% honest with you guys. I don't think we could run him in 2028. He gives me a little bit too much of like the politician establishment vibe, even though he's a cool guy. Just imagine the Republican attacks when they say the whole country is going to look like California. The whole country is going to be, your state's going to be like California. And listen, I love California, but I'm just thinking about the attacks. AOC is amazing. I don't think she would be a safe candidate in 2028 though. And my point is, a new candidate will still emerge. And when it comes to tariffs, she's talking about Trump's tariffs on China in his first term. That's way different than doing blanket tariffs. So if you guys appreciate my live news debates, let me know in the comment section so I keep doing them. I can start doing these once a week, defending Democratic policies, defending liberalism, and becoming an anti-Trump voice. As long as you guys are here with me, drop a like, subscribe, have a great rest of your day, and peace out.